These are cellular automata. This is, you can download this program. It's for free. It's something I worked on at San Jose State. We had a grant from the Electric Power Research Institute, and we were trying to figure out when you have a rolling power outage, what it looks like. And after we worked for a few years, we had I have to do the FN7. Yeah. Okay. So I'm just going to leave some of those up in the background because I really like the way they look. And actually, years ago, I saw a picture of Tim Leary doing one of the first be-ins at New York in a theater. And he was wearing white, and he had maybe Ken was there, and he had this the old style lava lamp kind of light show where you had oil and stuff. And I've always wanted to get undressed and kind of bathe in these things, but I'm not going to do that tonight. The talk I'm going to give, actually, R.U. gave such a great talk, I'm sort of humbled to follow him. It was so fascinating. The talk I'm going to give, I thought, I usually don't write my talks out, but this time, for whatever reason, I thought I would. And actually, later, if you want to read it, if you have trouble understanding something I say, you can find it on my blog. Let's see, where would it be? I think it's, yeah, here it is. But I'm not going to, I think it's sort of boring if somebody shows you their talk while they're reading it. But if you go to Rudy Rucker, it's better to see the lava lamp. If you go to rudyrucker.com/blog/psypunk, you'll find it. And I'll tell you what psypunk means in a minute. So let's get back to the pretty stuff. See if it wakes up again. There we go. Yeah. There's something else I wanted to say. Oh well. I'm going to read this now. Yeah. Oh yeah, I want to take a picture of you all. This is a good crowd. Real good crowd. Thanks for coming out. Yeah, baby. I was in Harlem today.
The tulips.
And I saw some tulips, yeah. Luke Sala drove me down to see the tulips. It was great. Okay, here we go. The theme of these talks is science fiction and fact. I often call myself a trans-realist science fiction writer. And this is a word I made up, but it's actually in Wikipedia now, so I've gotten over. And I'm a trans-realist science fiction writer. And what that means is that I turn my life and my speculations into science fiction. And then I watch what emerges in my novelistic laboratories. And I turn my science fictional discoveries into scientific speculation, which in turn fuels fresh novels on and on in an endless rising gyre. Today I will give you a specific example of how I work. So I'm going to list 4 points, and then I'm going to say more about each of these. 1, first I'm going to talk about a particular idea that fueled the cyberpunk literary movement in the 1980s. Second, I'm going to talk about how this idea has affected technology over the last 25 years. Third, I'm going to talk about some ideas that I'm using in a new series of novels in a genre that I made the name up yesterday. I call it Psypunk. Psy stands for psychic powers, so it's Psypunk novels. Fourth, I'm going to say a bit about how I think my new ideas might play out in the technology of the coming 25 years. So first of all, my idea for cyberpunk. During the year 1979 to 1980, I wrote a novel called Software. It was to take its place as one of the very first cyberpunk novels. And my new idea for the book was software immortality. And this is the idea that a person's mind can be uploaded into a computer. The first speaker said downloaded, it's actually uploaded. Because you offer things up to the computer god in the sky. So you upload your mind into the computer. So software immortality. To make the situation colorful, I had the subject's software extracted by having a gang of sleazy biker androids eat his brain. That's the punk part. Although the notion of uploading a human into a computer is now commonplace, when I wrote software, it was a genuinely new idea. I invented the notion of software immortality by thinking in terms of the then new distinction between a system's physical hardware and the software that's running on it. This was not at all an obvious thought in 1979. I was at the Mathematics Institute in Heidelberg, and it took me a year to think of this idea. The second point, the tech that came from cyberpunk. So what happened in the intervening quarter century? What came out of the idea of software immortality? I think the idea has served as a metaphor, a guide, and a vision. And there are a number of ways in which we do now upload into the machine. In particular, I'm thinking about how people upload text, pictures, audio, and video. Although I can't literally transform my personality into software, I can create a reasonable facsimile of myself online. This is such a pretty one, we're going to see this one. Okay. Yeah. That's a picture of your brain. Okay. There are a number of figurative ways in which you do upload into the machine. Okay, the web makes all the difference. So you can upload these things, and the web makes all the difference. And I'm going to get to why that's true. I often use the word lifebox. It's a word I made up, and I use it in this context to stand for a collection of data that holds a copy of a person's life. My recent nonfiction book, The Lifebox, the Seashell, and the Soul, discusses whether a lifebox emulation of a person could ever truly be alive. And I do think the answer will eventually be yes. But that's not the issue I want to talk about today. I want to focus on present day and near future technology. As I say, the web makes all the difference. The web is something that I didn't foresee in software, but which William Gibson stressed in his contemporaneous neuromancer, calling it cyberspace. In the past, your life's mementos were but a dusty drawer of photos and diaries or a cardboard box in the basement. But with the web, your records can become a life box, a hyperlinked and searchable website mixing text, photos, sound, and video. If you're technically inclined, you might make a personal website. If you're a blogger like me, you create part of the Lifebox on the fly as you go along. Or if you're busy with other things, you might employ someone to create a Lifebox for you. One that I particularly like is Stephen Wolfram, the computer scientist, has this beautiful site. He has a lot of people working for him. He's a very wealthy man. It's really gorgeous, and it's got like his whole life there, and it has a scrapbook of every paper that's ever applied to him. In the coming decade, there's going to be a really big business in Lifebox generation. I think that's going to be an incredible growth industry. When people retire, they always want to write their memoirs, and then they find out that writing is hard. People tend to think writing is easy. Like film directors, often they don't bother to hire a screenwriter. You know, they can write, you know, they went to school. Writing is hard, because you're taking, would you guys stop talking about it? Your life is a fractal, and crushing it down to a line is what's hard. So we're going to try to automate that. But how to automate it, I won't get into that right now. Why are the online Lifeboxes going to be so popular? The web makes all the difference. If I'm blogging, then I have the gratification of being able to post to my blog right away. I can post this speech and pictures of the audience, and everyone in the world can read it and recommend it and post comments and give me feedback. I'm not a lonely nut if I'm on the web. I'm part of the planetary mind. It feels good to be plugged in. The ability to share and be heard and connected is one reason for wanting a Lifebox. But when I wrote software, I was thinking in terms of literal personal immortality. I used to worry about death. Now that I'm old, I don't worry about it very much. It doesn't seem to matter as much. The actual immortality is not happening in terms of software. In the literal sense, we're still not very close to transferring minds into computers. Now, at present, we don't have very strong tools for munging a Lifebox's data. What do we have? Well, one thing we have that's actually pretty powerful is automated web search. More specifically, most blogs or websites will have a little search this site box. And you can put in a word or two, rather than having to Google the whole web, and you can just search that site. If you do that on somebody's blog, if it's a long blog, you're in effect interviewing a Lifebox. Anything you mention, it comes up with what that person has written about it. And what is an interview, after all, but applying a search engine to a database? That's all you're doing. And so in some sense, if you leave a good Lifebox, you have a little bit of immortality. People can still talk to you. Of course, a big part that's missing is you'd like to have an artificial intelligence animation that will get, like my blog site, to keep on generating entries after I'm dead. I can see writing a story about that. I might do that. Somebody dies and their blog entries keep popping up. It's, who knows? Then, it gets into trouble somehow. Finally, still in this vein, I need to acknowledge that even having an artificially intelligent online copy of me isn't really what I wanted when I wanted immortality. But as I say, I don't worry about it as much as I used to. The secret to stop worrying about death, at least what works for me, is to identify my inner glowing sense of I am with the universal light that fills the cosmos. And then there is no death to worry about. Well, if it won't really make you immortal, why have a Lifebox, a personal website, a photo sharing page, a video sharing presence, or a blog? To communicate with a lot of people at once, to enable strangers to get to know you, to build a playground that people can interact with for a long time to come, to work in a new medium, to create a new kind of art. And I would argue that technology has brought us these pleasures in the last 25 years as part of our instinctive quest for the science fictional notion of software immortality. Okay, and now I'm going to get into some new stuff. And these are some new ideas I have for, as of yesterday, what I'm calling Psypunk. Nowadays, I have this persistent dream of getting rid of computers. Digital computers. I sort of hate them. What are the ideas that I'm going to use to get rid of the computers? What tech might lead this, might enable this? Well, I got started by thinking about what comes after the vaunted computational singularity that we may be approaching. And I think most thinkers get it absolutely wrong. They think we're heading towards an ever more digital world. And I think the opposite is the case. Chip-based digital machines will go the way of horse-drawn carriages, steam engines, and wristwatches made of gears. How would this work? I have two desiderata, as the philosophers like to say. That is, two desired states of affairs. I want non-digital computational engines, and I want a means of interfacing with them. First of all, I want natural computation. And the point is, natural objects can do all the computation we need. There's two ways in which that's true. One way has to do with gnarliness. This is something that an idea Stephen Wolfram developed, and I pushed the idea a little bit further. And it has to do with the notion that natural processes like water or fire or the air, they're actually carrying out computation universal processes. And the fact that it's not digital doesn't really matter. A computer isn't truly digital. It's made of electrons. Electrons are state functions. They're continuous valued state functions. There's just a lot of them. Another way in which we can get rid of the digital machines is quantum computation. Basically, a quantum computation consists of shining light at an object and looking at what bounces off. It's pretty much, when you analyze what the scientists do, that's all that it comes down to. Now, the part that's hard with the natural objects being our computers, in other words, here's your stock market stimulation, okay? The hard part is interfacing. So I want to feed in the current market and pour this out. I can see, I look at the bubbles, it's like reading the tea leaves. I can see what to buy. So how do we interface with objects? Well, my science fictional notion is we're going to be able to talk to objects. Now, science fiction is about transmuting philosophy into funky fact. In order to achieve my desiderata, here are the SF-fictional axioms that I am now working with. 1, hylozoism. Every object is alive. 2, psi. Telepathy is possible. This is the key to the future. Hylozoism. Every object is alive. Psi. Telepathy is possible. Sounds nuts, right? Well, 25 years ago, when I was literally one of the first people to talk about uploading into a machine, people thought I was nuts too. I'm used to it. That's why I like to hang around with Are You Serious? He doesn't think I'm nuts. Okay, hylozoism has an estimable history in philosophy. The word comes from the Greek, hyle, meaning matter, and zoe, meaning life. This is also in the Wikipedia. You can find the links on that page I pointed out to you. It's related to a similar doctrine known as panpsychism, which again is not a pan everywhere psyche. There's a mind in all objects. And it's not a new age idea. It's, Fechner believed it, Schiller, Kant was into it a little bit. Basically, I've been reading this cool book, The History of Panpsychism in Western Thought. It's not really, it's just an idea that sort of became unpopular in the last 100 years when mechanism took over. Fechner used to say, mechanism, it's like a nighttime universe. The universe is this dark, crowded warehouse, and we're just these few little spots of light moving around in it. And then he said, why not have a daytime universe where everything is conscious, everything is alive. In my recent novel, Mathematicians in Love, I wrote about naturally occurring computations. That's one of the main themes in that book. And I've only just recently started writing about panpsychism. I did write a short story called Panpsychism Proved. It's in my anthology, Mad Professor. And actually the story appeared in Nature magazine, which was kind of satisfying. And again, it's the idea that everything is alive. And in that story, how would you find out that an object is alive? Well, you need telepathy to talk to it. Can we make telepathy be something more than New Age mystagogication? Well, sure. We use quantum entanglement. That's the secret of science fiction. You take magic and you give it a high-tech buzzword, and yeah, quantum entanglement. So, in my novel Post Singular, which is coming out this fall, and it's the first of this trilogy I'm writing. The trilogy is called Post Singular, Hylozoic, and Transfinite. And in Post Singular, I'm going to show how we move through a nanomachine-based singularity. That's the sort of boring, old-school singularity, been done. And we're going to go past it into a digital-free future. We're going to give endless memory upgrade to every atom in the universe by unrolling the 8th dimension. In the sequel I'm now writing, Hylozoic, everything is alive. You're building a stone wall, and the stones are talking to you, and they're happy. The stones think it's cool to get half a meter off the ground. And they dig being mortared together. But uh-oh, you pissed near the stream. So now the stream gets the trowel to twist and cut your hand. Animism becomes real. How did the objects wake up? Well, at the end of Post Singular, as I was just saying, I give every point on Earth an infinite memory upgrade. It's just a matter of unrolling the 8th dimension, which today's stingy physicists have insisted on rolling into a tiny loop. Unroll the 8th dimension and make tick marks on it for memory. Might my new work be part of a burgeoning literary movement? I don't know, though some like-minded people are gathering in the pages of my webzine called Flurb. It's at www.flurb.net. And again, all these links are on the page for this speech. So call it Psypunk. Okay, so now you must be wondering, what's the tech that's going to come out of Psypunk? Here we go. We can't really upload ourselves into computers, but the idea of it led us to photo sharing, personal web pages, social networking, and blogs. Where do hylozoism and telepathy lead us? Let's take telepathy first. That's a little more familiar in some sense. Cell phones, instant messages, and email are bordering on telepathy. The missing thing is the ability to link into another person's mind. Ordinarily, I communicate an idea to you by talking or writing. I give you a kit so that you can reconstruct my idea in your own head. If I had telepathy, I could instead pass you a link that would let you directly access the idea ready formed in my head without your having to reconstruct it. In terms of technology, what would be the kind of contemporary technological use of this notion? Well, an increased use of links. You have to wonder, why are we even distributing bit-built music files? Why not have a music player that just holds links? Why not have one platonic music file for each song and let people link into it, and if you like, have a micropayment structure? Not $1 a song, you know, 1/100th of a cent when you play it. This was Ted Nelson's Xanadu dream back when I was working with him at Autodesk in the 1990s. Maybe it's finally time to make it work. Another technological aspect of telepathy is that we imagine it as working across great distances, unlike cell phones. How can this be done? Quantum entanglement may yet lead the way. We haven't yet begun to utilize the magic of quantum computation. Everything has not been discovered yet. Think of where we were 50 years ago. A more rudimentary instance of telepathy-like tech, why not have cell phones that can detect and transmit subvocal speech, so you don't have to actually talk out loud like a crazy person in the street? Let me move on to the less familiar notion, hylozoism. As Stephen Wolfram and I have discussed, natural processes are already carrying out universal computations. If we take a femtoscale view, rather than a nanoscale view, any object is seething with quantum computation. Even an ordinary object, if you take the femtoscale view, it's little energy centers, and they're all oscillating. It's like 10 octillion balls connected by strings, springs. There's a lot going on in objects. Now, at present, objects are solely interested in computing themselves. But why not siphon off some of this richness for our own purposes? A more feasible technology that smacks of hylozoism is giving a computer really good voice and gesture recognition. People are working on this. You let the computer, it has a camera, let it track your eye movements as well as analyzing your voice. If your computer could simply watch and listen to you and figure out what you want, it would feel like it was alive. You don't really want it to be intelligent. You just want it to be as smart as a dog. You know, it's able to notice what you're doing and what you want. Another easily attainable form of hylozoism is ubiquitous computation, putting chips on lots of things. And ARFIDs, which I'm sure Bruce must have mentioned to you a couple of months ago. Bruce and I just wrote a story about giant ants, and they're tracking them to their lair by putting ARFIDs on them. It's a cool story. Anyway, as with software immortality, what I want you to try to do is don't think of hylozoism and telepathy as impossible dreams that we expect to achieve in the near term. Think of them as visions to beckon us forward into a fresh wave of technology. So that's all. Thanks.